The world had been fading at the edges for 3 years, a slow, creeping fog of macular degeneration that turned the sharp lines of my life into gray, indistinct smudges. It was a thief that stole faces first, then text, and finally, my independence. My name is Elias Thorne, 78 years old, and to my son Marcus and his wife Cheryl, I had become nothing more than a piece of expiring furniture in the corner of the estate I built with my own hands. They moved through my house, the house I paid for with 40 years of sweat in the shipping industry, like they already owned it. They treated me with a loud, patronizing kindness when the maid or the neighbors were watching, shouting at me as if my ears were broken along with my eyes. They didn't know that my hearing was as sharp as a razor. They didn't know that while the fog took my sight, it sharpened every other sense I possessed. I sat in my study, the leather of the armchair cool against my back, listening to the rain tap against the window pane. It was a rhythm I used to love, but now it just sounded like time ticking away. My hand rested on a small cardboard box on the desk. It had arrived that morning from Boston. My grandson, Toby, was the only one who didn't look at me like a Burton. He was studying engineering at MIT, a brilliant boy who remembered that his grandfather used to be a man of precision, not just an old invalid. I opened the box, my fingers fumbling slightly with the tape. Inside was a pair of glasses. They looked like classic Wayfarers, thick-rimmed and black, the kind I used to wear in the 60s. But these were heavier. They're Ray-Ban Metas, Grandpa, Toby had written in a note printed in font size 30, bold and black so I could read it with my magnifying glass. They have a camera and high-fidelity microphones. They'll help you zoom in on things you can't see, and you can record things if you forget. I put them on. They felt substantial on the bridge of my nose, a weight of modern technology I barely understood. But as I settled them on my face, I felt a strange sense of armor. I tapped the right temple piece. A tiny, almost imperceptible sound chimed in my ear. A white light blinked on the inside rim, invisible to anyone facing me. I was recording. Marcus's voice boomed from the hallway, loud enough to wake the dead. "Dinner time." I stood up, gripping my cane. "I'm coming, Marcus."
"I'm not shouting," he replied, his tone dripping with that exasperated patience that is worse than cruelty. "I just want to make sure you hear me." I walked into the dining room. I couldn't see the details of the room, the intricate crown molding, the oil paintings, but I knew they were there. I knew the ghost of my wife, Sarah, was there, sitting in the empty chair opposite me. Marcus guided me to the head of the mahogany table, his grip on my arm firm, almost rough. He shoved the chair in behind me, trapping me against the wood. Cheryl was already seated to my left. I could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral, that masked the scent of the gin she started drinking at noon. "Here we go, Elias," she said, her voice high and sickly sweet. She didn't hand me the linen napkin. She tucked it into my collar, spreading it over my chest like a bib. It was a ritual of humiliation they performed every Sunday. They wanted me to feel like a child. They wanted me to accept that I was helpless. I endured it with silent, burning shame, staring straight ahead through the lenses of the smart glasses. "Water for you, Dad," Marcus said, placing a plastic tumbler in front of me. I heard the clink of wine glasses being filled for them. I hadn't spilled the Merlot. Marcus had bumped my elbow last week, but history is written by the people who can see. The conversation flowed around me, fast and dismissive, as they ate. They assumed I was in the fog, lost in the confusion they claimed I suffered from. I ate my soup, lifting the spoon mechanically, keeping my head still so the camera could capture the scene in 1080p resolution. "The contractor called about the pool house," Cheryl said, not bothering to lower her voice. "Good," Marcus replied, cutting his steak with aggressive scrapes of the knife against the china. "The pool house was where I kept my woodworking tools. It was where I built the cradle Marcus slept in." "When will we done, Alice?" she asked. "Depends on Dr. Evans," Marcus said. "He needs one more episode of confusion to sign the competency waiver. The court needs a pattern of decline. Once we have that, we sell the house, dump him in the ward, and the trust fund unlocks." I froze. The spoon hovered halfway to my mouth, trembling violently. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They weren't just impatient heirs. They were actively accelerating my exit.
They were planning to declare me incompetent, to strip me of my legal rights, to seize the estate my sweat and blood had purchased, and to warehouse me in a facility while they spent my legacy on ski trips and renovations. "He's got sauce on his chin again," Cheryl said, looking at me with undisguised disgust. "God, it's disgusting. How much longer do we have to do this, Marcus? The facility in Jersey has a bed opening on the 1st. "I'm working on it, babe," Marcus replied, taking a sip of his wine. "Just be patient. The old man is tougher than he looks, but he's slipping." I lowered the spoon. I wiped my chin with the humiliating bib. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a bird trapped in a cage. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table and roar at them that I built this world they were so eager to steal. But I didn't. I forced myself to swallow the lukewarm soup. If you have ever sat across from the child you raised, the boy you taught to ride a bike, listening to him plot your disposal like a bag of trash, knowing he sees your life as nothing more than an obstacle to his inheritance, hit that subscribe button, because I wish someone had warned me. I wish someone had told me that the monsters aren't under the bed. They are sitting at the dinner table. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I reached up and adjusted the glasses, tapping the side one more time to ensure the file was saved. "I'm tired," I said, my voice raspy. "Fine," Marcus sighed. "Go." I navigated the hallway by memory, the adrenaline clearing the fog in my mind even if it couldn't clear my eyes. I locked the door to the study. It was the only room in the house they allowed me to keep private, mostly because it smelled of old books and they found it boring. The emotional fallout hit me then. I sank into my chair, my hands shaking so hard I dropped my cane. My son, my only son, he was going to sell my home. He was going to lock me away. The grief was a physical pain, a heavy stone in my gut. I felt nausea rise in my throat. I took the glasses off. I couldn't view the footage clearly on my phone. The screen was just a blur of light to me. I needed eyes. I needed someone I could trust. I picked up the landline, the old rotary phone Marcus kept meaning to disconnect, and dialed a number I knew by heart. "Samuel," I whispered when the line picked up. Samuel's voice was warm, grounded.
He was a retired judge who lived down the lane, a man who had stared down criminals for 40 years. "It's late." "No," I said. "I need you to come over. Come to the side door. Bring your iPad." Samuel arrived in 10 minutes. He didn't ask questions. He saw the look on my face, the pale, sweat-sheen terror, and he locked the study door behind him. "What is it?" he asked, sitting opposite me. I handed him the smart glasses. "My grandson sent me these. They record video." Samuel frowned, taking the glasses. "And I need you to tell me what you see," I said. "I need you to tell me if I'm crazy, because I think." We spent 20 minutes syncing the glasses to Samuel's iPad. Technology is a foreign language to men of our generation, but desperation is a universal translator. Finally, the video loaded. Samuel pressed play. I listened to the audio. It was crystal clear. Cheryl's insults, Marcus's plan, the mention of the facility in Jersey. Samuel's face went red. "This is unconscionable," he hissed. "Elias, this is grounds for disinheritance immediately." "Keep watching," I said. "There's more." I felt strange during dinner, dizzy. Samuel watched the screen. He leaned in close, squinting. He paused the video. He rewound it. He played it again in slow motion. "My God," Samuel whispered. The color drained from his face, leaving him looking as old and frail as I felt. "What is it?" I asked. "Look at the reflection in the window, Elias," he said, his voice trembling with a rage I had never heard from him, not even on the bench. "The camera is facing Marcus, but over your shoulder, there's the sideboard mirror." He described the scene to me, painting a picture of horror. "Cheryl is behind you," Samuel said. "She's fixing your tea." She reaches into her blouse. She pulls out a small vial, clear liquid. I sat back, the air leaving my lungs. "That's not sugar," Samuel hissed. "That's not sweetener.
That's why you've been feeling dizzy. The flashback hit me then, visceral and terrifying. The fainting spell last Tuesday, the time I lost 3 hours of memory and found myself sitting in the garage. Dr. Ann, he had prescribed sedatives. It wasn't dementia, it was poison. My own son and his wife were chemically dismantling my mind. They were manufacturing the symptoms of insanity to steal my money. They were drugging me at the dinner table, right in front of my blind eyes. They're poisoning me, I whispered.
The betrayal was so absolute it felt cold, like ice water in my veins. They aren't just waiting, they're killing me. We need to go to the police, Samuel said, reaching for his phone. Right now, this is attempted murder. I can call the district attorney. Wait, I said. Turn up the audio. There was something else. Samuel turned the volume to the maximum. The high-fidelity microphones on the glasses picked up a whisper I had missed during the clatter of silverware. On the recording, Marcus leaned in to Cheryl. Make sure he signs the birthday card later. It's the power of attorney buried in the stack. He can't read the fine print anyway. I looked at the stack of mail on my desk. Marcus had brought it in earlier. Just some junk and a card for Toby, he had said. I reached out and felt the stack. There was a thick envelope. Inside was a birthday card for my grandson. But tucked inside the fold of the card was a document. I held it up to my face, but it was just a gray blur. Read it, Samuel, I said. Samuel took the paper. It's a durable power of attorney, he confirmed, effective immediately, granting Marcus full control over all financial and medical decisions. It revokes your rights, Elias. If you sign this, he doesn't even need the court order. I hadn't signed it yet. I was going to do it after dinner. They were planning to legally erase me tonight, using my love for my grandson as the bait. That settles it, Samuel said, standing up. I'm calling the police. No, I said. My voice was quiet, but it was harder than it had been in years. It was the voice of the man who had built a shipping empire. A cold, hard resolve settled over me, pushing back the fear, pushing back the grief. The police will arrest them, I said. They'll get a lawyer. They'll get bail. They'll claim it was medicine. They'll claim I'm senile and confused. Elias, they are poisoning you, argued Samuel. I know, I said. And I want them to pay for every drop. I don't want them just arrested. I want them destroyed. I want to strip them of their reputation, their friends, their country club memberships, and their future. They wanted a show of my incompetence. I picked up the smart glasses and held them tightly. The Legacy Gala is on Saturday, I said. Marcus is giving a speech. Yes, Samuel said. Good, I said. A grim smile touching my lips. I'll give them a show they'll never forget. Samuel, can you edit this video? Can you zoom in on the poison?
Samuel looked at the iPad, then at me. The judge in him was fighting with the friend. The friend won. I can, Samuel said. My son is a film editor. Then let's get to work, I said. I'm not signing the card, and I'm not drinking the tea, but on Saturday. The tie was a silk noose, pulled just tight enough to remind me of the leash they had spent the last 3 years tightening around my neck. It was a Windsor knot, a style I had taught Marcus to tie when he was 16 and getting ready for his first homecoming dance. Now his wife, Cheryl, was adjusting it on my collar, with hands that felt cold and clinical, like a mortician preparing a corpse for an open casket viewing. Hold still, Elias, she snapped, tugging the fabric hard to the left. "You're fidgeting like a child. We need you to look presentable tonight." I stood in front of the mirror in my bedroom, but I didn't look at my reflection. I looked at her. I looked at her through the thick black frames of the Ray-Ban smart glasses resting on the bridge of my nose. To her, they were just another sign of my failing faculties, a desperate old man trying to look hip, or perhaps just trying to see through the fog of macular degeneration. She didn't know that I had tapped the temple piece 3 minutes ago. She didn't know that the tiny white light on the inside rim was blinking. "This suit feels loose, Cheryl," I said, my voice scratching against the silence of the room. "It's the charcoal one. I haven't worn this since before I got sick." "It fits fine," she lied, smoothing the shoulders of the jacket where the fabric bunched over my wasted frame. The poison they had been feeding me in my tea had done its work. I had lost 20 pounds in 3 months. I looked frail. I looked like a scarecrow stuffed into a tuxedo. Besides, it emphasizes your condition. It makes people sympathetic. Marcus needs the board members to see the burden he's carrying. "The narrative," I repeated, tasting the word. "Yes." "Exactly," she said, stepping back and examining me with a critical, loveless eye. "Now listen to me, Dad. Tonight is not social hour. We are going to put you in the wheelchair when we get to the venue. You are to sit on the stage. You smile, you nod. If someone speaks to you, you look at Marcus and let him answer. Do not try to speak. Do not try to tell one of your war stories." "I understand," I said, looking directly at the camera lens concealed in the frame of the glasses.
"I'll just watch." "Good," she said, checking her diamond watch, a gift I had bought her for Christmas 5 years ago. "The car is waiting." The drive to the Legacy Gala was a silent funeral procession. I sat in the back of the limousine, watching the city lights blur past the window. I had built half the skyline of this city. My shipping containers moved the goods that filled the stores we passed. My donations built the wing of the hospital we were driving to support. And yet to the 2 people sitting in the front, texting furiously on their phones, I was already a ghost. We arrived at the grand ballroom of the Metro Hotel. The valet opened the door and the flashbulbs popped immediately. It was a sea of light that hurt my sensitive eyes, but the glasses filtered it, recording every face. "Get the chair," Marcus barked at the driver. They unfolded the wheelchair on the sidewalk. I didn't need it. My legs were weak from the sedatives, yes, but I could walk, I could stand. But the wheelchair was part of the theater. It was the prop that sold the lie. I lowered myself into it, gripping the armrests until my knuckles turned white. Marcus took the handles, pushing me through the revolving doors like a trophy he had bagged on a safari. The ballroom was a cavern of gold light and crystal chandeliers. It smelled of expensive perfume, roast beef, and ambition. The social elite of the city were there, judges I had played golf with, doctors who ran my hospital, business rivals I had outmaneuvered in the 80s. They approached us in waves, their faces twisting into masks of pity when they saw me in the chair. "Elias," Judge Henderson said, grasping my hand with a clammy grip. "Good to see you, old friend. You look—" "He has his good days and bad days," Marcus answered for me, stepping in front of the chair to block my view. "Today is a quiet day. The confusion comes and goes." "You're a saint, Marcus," the judge said, shaking his head. "Taking on the estate and his care?" "It's family," Marcus said, his voice thick with fake emotion. I sat there, recording it all, every lie, every handshake, every stolen moment of my dignity. I looked up toward the back of the room, to the elevated AV booth that overlooked the stage. I saw a silhouette wave. Samuel, my oldest friend, the retired judge, had used his connections to get into the booth.
We had paid the young technician, a kid named Leo, whose father Marcus had fired without cause years ago, $5,000 to take a bathroom break at exactly 8:15 p.m.
"Let's get you to the stage, Dad," Cheryl whispered, leaning down so her breath tickled my ear. "Remember, mouth shut." They wheeled me up the ramp and parked me stage left, next to the podium but slightly behind it, like a piece of furniture meant to add gravitas to the set decoration. The lights dimmed. The chatter died down. Marcus took the podium. He looked dashing in his fitted tuxedo, the very picture of the grieving, responsible son carrying the heavy burden of a crumbling legacy. He adjusted the microphone, looking out at the crowd with a practiced solemnity. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began, his voice resonating through the high-end speakers. "Tonight is a celebration of the hospital my father founded 30 years ago." He turned and gestured to me.
The spotlight hit me, blinding and hot. I blinked behind my dark glasses, looking small and withered in the chair. My father, Marcus continued, is a titan, a man who built an empire from nothing. But as many of you know, the sunset comes for us all. The mind that built this city is fading. He paused for effect. I saw Cheryl in the front row, dabbing in dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. The performance was flawless. It falls to us, the next generation, to steward his assets and his dreams when he can no longer hold them, Marcus said, his voice gaining strength. That is why, tonight, I am announcing his formal retirement from all public and private boards. The room applauded. It was a polite, respectful applause, the sound of power transferring from one hand to another. It was the sound of my burial. But first, Marcus said, smiling benevolently, a video tribute to his life. He pointed to the massive projection screen behind us. That was the cue. In the booth, Samuel hit the button. The screen didn't show the sepia-toned photos of me from the 1980s that Marcus had curated. It didn't show me cutting ribbons or shaking hands with presidents. The screen flickered to life with a digital timestamp. Sunday, October 14th, 6:43 p.m. The image was high definition, filmed from my eye level. It was the dining room of my house, projected 20 feet high. The details were excruciatingly clear. The grain of the wood table, the condensation on the wine glasses, the sneer on Cheryl's lip.
The audio boomed through the concert speakers, stripping the air from the room. "He's got sauce on his chin again!" Cheryl's voice echoed, magnified 1,000 times. The room gasped. It was a physical reaction, a collective intake of breath that sucked the oxygen out of the ballroom. The applause died instantly, replaced by a confused, terrifying silence. Marcus froze at the podium. His smile twitched, then froze in a rictus of confusion. He turned to look at the screen, but the video rolled on. "The facility in Jersey has a bed opening on the 1st. Marcus's recorded voice thundered, the callousness cutting through the gala like a knife. A murmur of horror rippled through the crowd. I saw people standing up at the tables. I saw Judge Henderson drop his glass. I saw the chief of police, a man I had known for 40 years, set his drink down and step forward, his eyes narrowing. Marcus gripped the podium, his knuckles white. He stammered, his voice pitching up. "Turn it off! It's a deep fake!" He looked frantically toward the booth, but the video continued. It zoomed in. Samuel had done his work well. The editing was precise. The screen filled with the reflection in the dining room window. The entire room watched, mesmerized and horrified, as the reflection showed Cheryl standing behind my chair. She reached into her dress. She pulled out a small glass vial. She dripped 3 clear drops into my tea. "That's not sugar," Samuel's voice from the recording whispered, narrating the crime for the blind audience. Then the audio shifted again. The volume spiked. "Make sure he signs the power of attorney buried in the stack." The recorded Marcus whispered to his wife on the screen. "He can't read the vine print anyway." Cheryl screamed. It wasn't a scream of denial. It was the primal, high-pitched shriek of a trapped animal realizing the gauge tar had swung shut. She stood up from the front table, knocking her chair over. She tried to run toward the stage stairs, perhaps to stop the video, perhaps to flee, but her heel caught in the hem of her gown. She fell hard, hitting the floor with a sickening thud, but no one moved to help her. The crowd recoiled from her as if she were radioactive. I looked at Marcus. He was trembling, staring at the screen where his own face was plotting the demise of his father. He looked stripped naked. I reached down to the brake of the wheelchair. Click. I stood up. A gasp went through the room again.
I didn't stumble. I didn't shake. I pushed the wheelchair away, and it rolled off the edge of the stage, crashing onto the floor below with a loud metallic clatter that punctuated the end of the lie. I walked to the podium. Marcus shrank away from me, stumbling back until he hit the screen that was still playing the evidence of his treason. I gripped the microphone. I looked out at the sea of shocked faces, the elite of the city, the witnesses to my resurrection. Then I turned my head and looked at my son. "I may be losing my sight, Marcus," I said. My voice was booming, strong and clear, fueled by a rage that burned cleaner than any fuel my ships ever carried. My eyes may be failing. I reached up and took off the smart glasses. I held them up to the light, letting the crowd see the technology that had saved me. "Marcus," whispered, holding his hands up. "Dad, please, it's," I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "You poisoned my tea, Marcus. You poisoned my mind." Technology is a wonderful thing, I said to the crowd, putting the glasses in my pocket. It captures the things we miss when we blink. The doors at the back of the room burst open. The police were moving in. I had called them from the car on the way here. They swarmed the stage, not for me, but for the man cowering against the projection screen. They handcuffed Marcus. He was screaming now, babbling about entrapment, about insanity. He's crazy. He's the crazy one. They handcuffed Cheryl, who was still on the floor, weeping into the carpet. Marcus Thorne, Cheryl Thorne, the chief of police said, stepping onto the stage. As they were dragged away, kicking and screaming, the room didn't applaud. They stood in a silence of pure respect and horror. They looked at me, the old man in the ill-fitting suit, standing alone on the stage. I looked up at the booth. Samuel gave me a thumbs up. I walked off the stage on my own 2 feet. I didn't look at my son as they shoved him into the back of a squad car outside. I got into a taxi. I went home to my empty house. It was quiet. The servants had left. The house felt vast and hollow, but for the first time in 3 years, it didn't feel like a prison. It didn't feel lonely. I walked into the kitchen. The teapot was still on the counter from this morning, the cold, poisoned brew sitting inside. I picked it up. My hands were steady. I poured the dark liquid down the sink, watching it swirl away into the drain, taking the fog with it.
I rinsed the pot. I filled the kettle with fresh, clean water. I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out my phone. I dialed Toby. "Uh-huh," he answered on the first ring. His voice was breathless. "Did it work?" "Yes, Toby," I said, looking out the window at the garden. The moon was rising, silver and bright. I couldn't see the individual leaves on the trees, but I could see the light. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am," I said, a tear finally escaping, tracking hot down my cheek. "I'm okay, Toby.